welcome to our Creators Assemble Limelight interview. I am Joe Barrett with Creators Assemble, and today I'm bringing you our first Limelight interview of 2021. This month, we are bringing you artist Autumn Snow, whose art you may already be familiar with, as she has been bringing joy to one of our Wish kids and has been helping out on the ebook supporting social justice. Her art is currently displayed at the Limelight Gallery that you can visit at creatorsassemble.org. Thank you for being here, Autumn. So, why don't you just kind of give us a quick little information about yourself? How do you describe yourself to people?
How do I describe myself to people? Would like to say hilarious and amazing, but I am an educator. Started my own business 6.5 years ago to bring art education to younger kids. I've taught in preschools for 13 years now. Now I've switched over to more settings in home. I'm tutoring a week, nannying during like 4 days out of the week, and then 2 days on my art program. So it's back and forth between two amazing jobs. I'm very fortunate to be in the position I'm in. And I'm very thankful to, honestly, for you guys just popping out, seems like out of nowhere, these great opportunities for artists to, I know it's a very isolating time, but I do feel that's sort of my natural thing is kind of inward and quiet into myself. So it's great to have a creative outlet that is provided by you guys that is also giving back to the community at a time where we might feel like we don't know how to help other people. So I'm thankful to have my art out there, of course, but thankful to be able to work with you guys on these issues. Does that describe me? I don't know.
No, that describes everybody. That's perfect. That's so. Where did you kind of get your background? How did you kind of fall into art?
So when I was about, I think 5 years old was the first time where I did something in an art sense and received recognition for it. It might seem like a small thing, but again, that's kind of why I have my own business now, is to provide experiences for little kids so that they see art as a real legitimate thing, which surprisingly the whole world doesn't, or parts of the world don't sometimes. I think in kindergarten I did like a coloring contest. I lived in Claymont, Delaware at the time, and I think it was like a pharmacy or something. I did a coloring contest. It was also the first time when an adult didn't believe me. I feel like that happens sometimes when you're a kid too. Like you create things and the adults are like, "That's amazing. Your parents did a great job. You did a great job." Anyway, it was me. I was able to stay in the lines, which was, I guess, a big deal for being 5. But I got this it was Easter time. I got this really big baby chicken as like a prize. And it was a very physical, real, tangible thing that I could hold as a child. It was also adorable, but it was kind of this, you can do something in this field and people will recognize you for it. So I think that was probably the first time. Elementary school, I lived in Baltimore for elementary school, and I just had these amazing teachers. I had this music teacher who was able to get me into the county chorus. She was like really connecting the school with community. My art teacher got some of our artwork in the Baltimore Museum of Art. I think it was in 4th or 5th grade for that. And that was just huge to see teachers. And of course, myself being a teacher, I know how it's kind of hard to get things out and connect everyone on top of what you already have to do. I was just really fortunate to have these leaders in the community that were in the arts and really advocated for their students. So that was probably the younger end of me getting into the local Baltimore art scene, I guess, as a kid.
So I guess that's what kind of pulled you into the teaching aspect yourself then, is just kind of feeling that connection to it.
I think so. When I was in college, I studied psychology and then criminal justice. And then I got into education. Long story there. I won't necessarily. But, there was a really tricky time in my life in college that I went through. And I was able to turn that into um, following my passion. I think after that amazing experience in Baltimore, when I was younger, in middle school and high school, I moved to Philadelphia and a football town, which was vastly different from where I had living, and focus on the arts was just not there. And I was also extremely new to a new location and really sort of quiet. And I didn't know how to reach out myself, I think. So yeah, I think education it's important for me to bring a lot of different like diversity to the classroom is huge for me. But I think also just being able to see some of my younger self kids out there who are there's a lot of talent there and a lot of creativity there, but it might be difficult for them to express it. Or again, it's also me validating it as an actual job, an actual skill, a talent that you can bring into your later years too. So just
Excellent.
here to bring the arts to as many people as possible.
Now, I assume the people here, I don't know if they're going to be absolutely familiar with your type of art, but what kind of mediums do you like to work in?
For a long time, I, again in high school, I didn't really do too much. I picked it up again in college. I think in college it was more getting through all the things I was working through. Was pencil and ink is what I was
Mhm.
most comfortable with. Not as scary as painting. Painting has only been the past few years. It took me that long to kind of. It took me into like my mid 30s to be like, I think I can paint. Maybe it was. I have no training. I have no formal art education or art training. So it's kind of. I was honestly what started it all was I met a group of people. I met Jennifer Cooksey of After Dark Creations, and she was doing these amazing shows at the Subterranean Coffees, also linked with Thumbprint Gallery and Johnny of Thumbprint. And just honestly meeting her, seeing that she had this cult art show a few blocks from my house. I mean, I have a lot of feelings about Facebook, but I saw this invite and it was like, you might be interested. And I was like, I am. It was all about 8-bit video games. And so it was like a part, um, not pub quiz, but it was part quiz. And it was part art show. And I just had never, I'd been waiting. It was kind of this really lucky moment where I've been waiting for an art community and just like quietly hoping that things would happen. And walking into that coffee shop, that changed everything. I met people who were really into the cult thing. That's kind of, I'm super into like interesting movies that I don't think a lot of people have seen or interesting shows. Just, I like the cult following a lot. And that group was kind of what was able to get me into the idea of painting. So yeah, I use mostly acrylic now. Long-winded way of getting into that, but acrylic is easier if I've not tried oil. I see so many people use oil, and that just blows my mind.
Terrifying.
Thank you.
It's
Yes,
terrifying.
it
Yeah.
moves so much, and so the difference from going from ink to pencil to then meeting these people who had, I mean, it was a wide range of talent. Um, it was a lot of different mediums, all based around this, the initial show that I saw. So it was cool to see a whole bunch of different things. I got some watercolors. Watercolors are wonderful, but if you drop like a droplet of water somewhere accidentally, the whole it's a
Yep.
little difficult. I like acrylics because they listen, they hang, stay for a long time, and then you can still seal it if you need to, but it's not necessary. So acrylics, a little bit of digital. I'm actually writing a kid's book right now. It's digital, so I'm finding my path into the digital world on Procreate's the app that I really like using for that on my tablet. It's the reason why I got an Apple product. I always had Samsung, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try Procreate. Thankfully, having to teach on Zoom and having to bring my classes into this virtual space, I have 3 different devices going when I'm doing that. So it forced me to learn about Apple products. I didn't really have a choice. I kind of just had to figure it out.
Absolutely.
And that was really, really helpful to even get more into illustrating on the tablet. So again, pretty new to the painting and the digital work, but still learning. But yeah, I'm most comfortable right now with acrylic. So that's that.
Well, education wise, I mean, what are you kind of teaching your kids? What aspect of art are you kind of teaching them? Are you teaching them overall, or is it just specific things? Or
So I taught when I moved out here, started at a preschool that was Reggio inspired. And I had gone from, I was ready to teach like second grade in a public school. And then I come out to California, my degree in education doesn't work out here. And that's happened to a lot of people that I know who are transplants. I would rather have started working, didn't really have a choice. Like I had to get into working to support myself. So the Reggio school was very much topic based, but it was also up to the students. The students and the teachers kind of create the curriculum together. So if they're talking about dinosaurs, let's learn about dinosaurs until they want to not learn about dinosaurs, which is they always want to learn about dinosaurs, but at a certain natural rhythm, they'll get into something else. So I'm big into projects. With Zoom, it's a 4-week span teaching. When I was in person, it was up to 2 months on the topic. It just kind of depended on how long the kids were interested in what we were going for. So I mean, there is certain times where I'll talk about theory or color theory, or I'll talk about different technique, but it's mostly about how you can focus on different artists throughout history. So I've taught about, I think it's up to 40 artists or cultures by now. And I'm really kind of focusing on artists of color. I don't plan on teaching about like American or Western European artists for a while, because that's kind of, I mean, growing up, like you hear about Van Gogh and Matisse, and you hear all these big names, but I think it's really important to normalize the fact that not all artists look like that, or all artists don't necessarily look like me either. So, so we're going right now, I think I've been doing 3 months at a time. So the season right now, we're learning about 2 artists from the 1920s Harlem Renaissance, which, I mean, it's just so fun to teach art and to teach kids having no real background, because I didn't know about the Harlem Renaissance until a few years ago when we studied another artist. So this season, 2 artists are from the Harlem Renaissance, Black artists from that time period. And then I'm also going to be teaching about a Native American artist. So I mean, we learn a bit about them. We learn about the music at the time period, and then I kind of adapt that for whatever. Usually, it's kind of preschool to elementary school range. So I work with what they could do given what the artist makes. So I'll choose a few pieces of work from the artist, show it to the students. They can kind of do what they want though. I'm not a stickler saying you have to do this or you have to do that, because I don't think that's very natural for children. And I think when you get, I mean, it can be, some really like the rules. I get that. I was one of those. But when it comes to um, learning about these artists, it's more about a little bit of their history. I just want them to have that in their head. They don't need to focus on it too much, but I want them to hear this is the journey of that artist. This is what the artist looks like. This is the music from the time period. Renaissance jazz was booming, so we're listening to like Louis Armstrong and Dizzy Gillespie. So the music's really an important aspect for me as well. And then we're focusing on again like a piece of work. But so for right now, say we're focusing on Jacob Lawrence, and he did this amazing. Again, it's just wonderful to be able to really study these things that you don't really grow up learning in school. He did this 60-piece series about the Great Migration of Black Americans from the South to the North. And his take was part educational, part visual arts. So he was documenting visually in these 60 pieces what this whole culture was going through, what the shift was. On the kids side of it, we're learning about, so he was big into he would paint the environment, he would paint people in the environment, and he would work with sort of more dull colors with bright splashes of vibrant colors. So taking that with the kids, we're talking about how our environment right now looks a little different. People are wearing masks on their faces. That's different. What we're seeing in our environment being like that, we're mostly in our homes. So I'm encouraging them to draw something or paint something within their home. And then maybe like also looking outside. What do you see outside? Or what do you see if you go to the grocery store? So sort of bringing their real life, connecting it to the artist that we're learning about. So that's kind of how that goes. And they can kind of have whatever. I'm just happy that they're creating. It doesn't have to be, I'm like, let's do a splash of color. Let's talk about color today. If they don't, fine. But it's in there somewhere, you know, so it's learning about the words and the adventure of it all, I think.
That's fantastic. I mean, it seems like you just have a natural gift for it. So, so I guess just kind of balancing that a little bit. How do you actually work on your actual work itself while balancing the teaching aspect of it?
Um, I mean, I would love to say that I could, you know, tutor during the day and come home at night and be like, let's work on a project. I don't really.
It's not that easy.
Be great if I could just be like, I'm totally focused. It takes a lot of, for me, it takes a lot of, like I'm usually freehanding actors or humans. I do a lot of portrait type things, and I kind of need a large chunk of time. So I will spend, you know, a Saturday, like I'll know that Saturday, Sunday, I can get a sketch done. I can start the color on a painting. I can start the work on a painting, and then just try to see how long it takes me. Sometimes a painting will be like 10 hours. Sometimes less. Sometimes it just happens really quickly. Sometimes it's a multiple day thing where I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. And then something switches and I'm like, finally it's making sense and I'll be able to work on it like that. When it comes to the kids book that I'm working on, that's digital. I'd also like to say I can come home and just curl up with an iPad and just draw all the things and be super ready and excited. But again, it takes up a lot of space and a lot of time in my head and physically too. It's a very focused process. But that book is the book that I'm working on is COVID themed. I've been working on a sci-fi kids book for a very, very very long time, and it's very complicated. There's like 4 series, and it has to do with musical albums. It's a lot. We'll get there at some point, possibly. This is more short term. It's an ABC book that I'm working on, and it's been months because I have to. I'm collecting. It's about animals, real life animals. So it's the working title is the mostly true stories of very real pets, an ABC book about the pandemic and how pets are helping us through this really interesting year that we're in. So that's me reaching out to a whole bunch of people, asking for pictures of their animals, stories. I'm adding a charity type thing at the end of the book where it's going to be real pictures of the families and the animals and what do they support and what do they recommend that you help in your community, that kind of thing. But that's taking a long time because I, again, don't know what I'm doing when it comes to digital art, really. I'm just finding my style, I guess is a healthier way to say that. But that's like importing all the animal pictures and then coming up with short poems and rhymes, starting with the first letter of each of the pages. So that's taking a while as well, but I'm hoping within, a few months I'll have a lot more work on that done. So yeah, it can take some time to be an artist.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a difficult balance, especially life and work and actually having that creative outlet. How do you know when you've completed a piece? How do you know when you've gotten to the end of finishing something?
Great question. It always hits me by surprise because usually I'll be listening to music sometimes, or I'm the best athlete in the world if you consider binge marathon a race, because I can just binge movies or TV shows while I'm working on it, and I'll work. I'm left-handed, so I go typically from the right side to the left side sometimes. Depends if I'm going by dark to light, color, depends on what the background looks like. So it depends on where that journey is taking me. But typically I'll kind of get everything done. It's always very in these little chunks. Um, I'll freehanding, like I'll possibly sketch it out, but sometimes I'll just work from one side to the other, or up and out with dark colors, like I said. But I won't know that it's done until I complete the last thing. I see that paint's covering everything. That's happened, so that's great. And it's not until like I see that last part and I'm still like, okay, what's next? And I look, thankfully it's done and over with. It's not always like I'm glad this is done, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it's real work to get to the end, but sometimes I don't know. It just hits me, and I'm like, should I? No, I'm good. So it's kind of that. If you're balancing color, you're balancing the lines of it all. You might want to go back and adjust things, but usually I'm just, this is it, and we're best friends, and this is where we part ways, and you're there on the wall, and I'm here as a human again. It's a very interesting, interesting process.
Breathe again. You can walk away, and you can finally get up, stretch your leg. Yeah, exactly.
I'll just forget to eat. I'll forget to do what I need to do. Taking care of myself. I'll forget to shower. Like I go into this whole zone where it's just me and the art. So yes, it's
Absolutely. The zone is the scary part. But you brought up music. What do you listen to? We've always had artists on here saying what they listen to that inspires them while they're doing their stuff. So I'm always curious, what do you listen to while you're doing your stuff?
so. The original sci-fi book that I was working on for what seems like the greater portion of my life, that's actually based off of a Weezer song. So Weezer is like my number one band. Uh, People have so many feelings on it, and Weezer, and it just makes me love them even more because it's really funny to me. But so I took the beginning of that book is actually the song "My Name Is Jonas," my interpretation of what those characters look like in the real world. Well, illustrated, but like what that would mean. It's a very interesting song if you pick apart the
Absolutely.
lyrics and you think this person's losing it. And then if you take a middle school age character and you kind of pop them into this alternate reality, that's really fun. When it comes to painting or creating regularly, I'm big into Spotify. I enjoy their algorithm. I feel like computers and the algorithm are a terrifying thing sometimes growing up without that. But it's very helpful to listen to a few bands and then these other things just start playing and you've never heard them. And I add them all to this long playlist. But band wise specifically, um, I think this past year, Jukebox and the Ghost is just one of my favorite bands right now. The melodies are great. I think they opened up for Ben Folds for a while. The piano talent in that band is phenomenal. It's really upbeat and happy, which is great this year. It's very helpful. Very like positive and just really fun to listen to if you are trying to get your flow going for me personally. Um, but aside from that, oh man, I'd have to look at the playlist, but anything 80s, anything from the UK in the 80s, or even like NXS Australia or whatever, just give me some synth and I'm excited. I was so happy when Stranger Things came out and everyone's like, "Oh, this music's amazing." I'm like, the whole thing is like it's all the 80s to me, like the visuals, all so many references in that show, specific shots that line up with all of these things that I grew up watching and the music with it, listening to it is just I think that show is wonderful. But it's definitely a nostalgic thing. So it's interesting to be like late 30s and like, wow, the 80s were this magical time, but it's getting so much farther away and farther away. And people are like, I was born in 2000. I'm like, excuse me, when did that happen? People are just kind of, it's interesting to like grow up and have your parents, my parents were always pretty current. The 70s were great, but we were big into REM and Peter Gabriel and oh my goodness, like some of that side of B-52s, like I could listen to B-52s all day, every day. But to have your parents listen to what you're listening to at the same time is really wonderful because I had all these friends and they're listening to like the oldies. And now, if I'm in the grocery store, I hear some bands from the 90s and I'm like, I love this shopping experience. And then I'm thinking, like, wait, why why is this happening? Why is this age and this genre following me around while I'm shopping in the grocery store? And it's
Yeah.
the human experience is really interesting when it comes to the passage of time and what people are into. So
Yeah, no, it scared the hell out of me when Nirvana showed up on my oldie station, and I about drove the car right off the road and just about crippled myself. That was just
so my friend Jennifer again, she just created this toy called Creep in the Corner, and so I had Creep in the Corner disrupting me by listening to Ghost, the band Ghost, which is also a great band. Listening to Ghost like on my turntable. And so I was like, you know what? I think the Creep in the Corner might like listening to Nirvana. So it's like maybe I can learn it on piano. I all learn by ear, and those YouTube videos where like the things come down and it's like this note, I write it all down, and then so I taught myself Heart Shaped Box, the not the complete version, but the Westworld version, where they just again the Westworld soundtrack,
of course incredible.
um, phenomenal. So I think I might be recording myself playing Heart Shaped Box for the Creep soon, which is hilarious to me. But Nirvana, the oldies, oh my goodness.
Yep, we've hit that point.
Like I remember when all that went down in the 90s, Nirvana, that hit me really hard. I remember being in the car and just like Dave Grohl's first new song after all of that played in the car, like the fingernails are pretty song. I don't remember what it's called, but that song, I just remember like quietly like crying in the back of the car because I'm like, at least Dave's good. Like Dave's fine. And now, I mean, talk about
Dave's more than fine.
running the world. Like he's wonderful. Oh my, and his drum battles with that little girl. Oh my, thank the world for Dave Grohl. So good. Oh my goodness.
He's a better man than most of us. I can attest to that. So I guess we'll bring it back on a little bit back on the track there. Even though I love a musical deluge all the time. Um, what inspired you as being younger? What were your inspirations? I know you kind of mentioned, 80s kind of really nostalgia kind of brings you into it.
It really does. I think the first big artist that I saw as a kid and I was just blown away. Um, Real quick before that, going back to the music a little bit, I think when I was even younger than that, and I was again in Delaware at the time, MTV actually played music videos. But the music video for Aha's "Take on Me,"
Mm.
where the humans are existing in a space, then there's a drawing that happens. Everyone is turning into a drawing, and like humans turn into animation. And I just, man, that changed how I saw everything. My parents were very much into reading me Tolkien and the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe series. And so I've always been I'm very thankful that I always had these great, epic, otherworldly visions in my head. And I think that music video really did that as well. And that ties into the artist I was going to talk about, which is MC Escher. And
Mm.
Escher just, I mean, take Escher with the Henson Companies and the Frauds, Labyrinth with David Bowie, and just Escher is just, I mean, the genius behind it. It's very technical. I actually taught tessellations to some of my like preschool students. It went very well. I was like, how am I going to do this? But it's a very um, at least the tessellation part of it is something that little kids can do if you know how to draw the line within the space. Then you kind of flip it, and they all end up locking into these patterns. A very difficult concept visually, but you can break it down into a simpler way. Um, Escher was huge, and then seeing, I mean, the Henson Company and the Frauds, the creatures that they created were just these amazing. Of course, the Muppets and all of that was huge too, but this was a very, it put together, oh, the Dark Crystal too, and the new Dark Crystal. I mean, bring live puppeteers into something and it changes. Oh, CGI is great, it's wonderful, but there's something to the movement of puppeteers that just brings you so far into this other other world with the textures, the movements. Oh my goodness, it's beautiful. And I think the Labyrinth was really instrumental in that in the 80s. And then I think in the 90s, I found out about Tim Burton and Danny Elfman. And again, visual with
Mhm.
musical. I was lucky enough to see Danny Elfman speak at Comic Con. He did this really big panel where he was releasing all this music. And I mean, just hearing a genius type, it's kind of like he doesn't have an option. He just hears music all the time. It sounds exhausting, but what he's able to create in collaboration with the visual artists like Tim Burton's just, oh my goodness, they're the power couple for me. I think that they're wonderful. Beetlejuice was massive and twisted and weird, and then throw in a Winona Ryder, and I'm sold. Like, oh my, Catherine O'Hara, that whole cast is brilliant. Um,
Absolutely.
so wonderful. And but just to have this weird, like all my friends were like, "Do you watch Full House?" I'm like, "No, I was watching like Beetlejuice and like the X Files are new, so like I'm into that. Like I've always been really into sci-fi, odd, just it kind of highlights the absurdity of what it is to be a human. I think it's can be a wonderful experience, but can also be very strange. It's a very odd world that we live in sometimes. So um, Tim Burton was huge. Similarly, I think and this is just visually, I was a big fan. My parents had these interesting books, and one of them was Edward Gorey. And Edward Gorey just also has an ABC book for kids, and I would have loved to go in that direction. But Edward Gorey is just this ink work, this beautiful ink work, very morbid, very strange. Like the ABC book was just all these ways that kids were getting sick and like sometimes not surviving. And it was just this very like shocking sort of. I was just reading this book as a kid and just I thought it was just visually stunning. And I would read it. I'm like, this sort of seems kind of like Beetlejuice too. It's just that sort of like I like the really bright and happy with the really dark and like what? Like what? Where did
Just
that come
slightly twisted.
from? Oh my, yeah, I love it because I think it's kind of realistic. I wasn't into like the bright, sunny, happy things necessarily. I like the depth of the human mind, wherever that may take us. But I think those are the main artists when I was younger. Moving slightly towards middle school or high school. I'm not sure when Tank Girl came out, but Jamie Hewlett and Tank Girl. Of course, I saw the movie before all the comics and everything, but Tank Girl had really interesting. Uh, Jamie Hewlett just has really a great use of line and color, and everything is sort of morphed into this odd way, sort of like the tall, lanky characters with uh, big heads, no people sometimes. I thought that was interesting. And just to see this like strong female character who's just so wild. It was just really different from other female leads that I'd seen. And of course, Lori Petty was great in that role. And so that kind of just interesting, twisty things. I think that's what inspired me to kind of keep creating. Just interesting.
Who inspires you now? Who do you follow now?
Way too many people on Instagram because it takes me forever to get through the feed.
Absolutely, it's dangerous medium now.
It can be great. There's like doom scrolling, and then there's just I need more information scrolling. They can be one and the same sometimes, but now, oh my goodness, there are so many. There's a few. There's an illustrator. I don't have the name, but I can get it at some point. There's an illustrator that lives in Philadelphia. It's really the cool thing about social media is that I think this illustrator, just gorgeous illustrations, really like dark colors and odd characters. I don't know how old they are. That's an interesting thing. Like I think this is like maybe someone in their 20s who I've never met. I have no idea. There's August Lamb. She's really cool. There's a lot of cross-hatching ink work that she does. In the same vein of very similar to Jamie Hewlett is Laura Zombie. Laura Zombie has some really amazing creations, really bright colors, but the style is very similar to Hewlett. And I think it's just endlessly entertaining. Um, there's a few it's a wider variety than when I was a kid because like I follow someone from Italy who does these really realistic paintings of buildings, just tons and tons of buildings. And then there's this artist from South Korea, and it's just these watercolors that are very like I don't know how the colors go. You know, like, I mean, I'm learning about colors, but like, it doesn't seem like things should fit, but it fits. And but it's so light and airy, interesting faces. Oh my goodness. Um, lots, just lots of people, tons of artists out there. I think I want to say his name is, oh, that's the other thing too. I know what the circles look like. I know what their tags are, like their circles of what their images. Don't always read the name. But I want to say it's Rich something. He has a lot of really amazing paintings, very interesting style, but I'd have to find out their names. I'm not quite sure all of them.
No, I'm kind of in the same boat, where I'll scroll through and I'll scroll through, and then it's like I'll love something, and then I'll keep going, and then I like spend like a half hour trying to go back through everybody to try and find it again, and I'm not sure where it came from or who it was, and
Yes. I
yeah,
archive so many things and then I forget archive exists. And I'm like,
yes,
don't, where did I save that? Which account did I save that to? Was that only on Facebook? I have no idea. It's like a treasure hunt in your own mind for all these amazing things that are out there. So I
absolutely. So what keeps your spark? What keeps your drive going? What pushes you?
I think going back to when I was younger, I think it's very deep seated. I think it's kind of this passion for at least when it comes to the educational side of things for me, I think just knowing my own reaction to life and how when stressful situations occur, I turn to being able to create, being able to do something that I knew I was capable of. And again, not completely capable of, which is the fun of it because you're constantly trying to better yourself. I've never been competitive with other people. Like I'm an only child and I don't understand sports. I have no idea what any of that's like. So I've been competitive with myself. So if I can accomplish something, that's driving me in my own art. But when it comes to students, it's going back to just being able to cope with life. I think to cope with the stressors that happen. And I'm fortunate that that's been my path, that there is an outlet for me that I was able to find at kind of a young age. So I think giving that outlet to the youth and to the families, just to let them know that it's something that could be helpful for their kid um, now or down the line, who knows. Um, that's a huge thing, but it's culturally speaking, globally speaking, um, I would really like for, again, normalizing artists of color, that's and LGBTQ, that community as well, which I am a part of. I really would like for stories to be told for these artists who aren't taught about in school. I've never heard of some of these people at all until I go out of my way to research them, to bring them to students. And it just boggles my mind that that's something that has to be done. So I guess just spreading awareness of the community and then spreading awareness of the self. I think that's why my art classes, I base it off of a theorist that I studied in college, which was Howard Gardner. And I love Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences so much because starting off in school, I was doing a lot of student work in public schools before I graduated. And it's all about teaching to the test, and it's all about pushing numbers and pushing literacy, which I completely understand. It's extremely important to have those things. I totally get that, but is that a thing in our world where we're like, well, what about your visual knowledge? What about your musical knowledge? What about your, oh my goodness, interpersonal skills? Like that should be focused on, I think, a lot more for the benefit of all society, just to learn about yourself and what you're capable of, to be able to communicate that, and to, more importantly, sometimes learn about other people and why they are the way they are, why they do the things that they do. So I I think that I mean that's a huge thing for me. But yeah, I think just getting the knowledge out there that it's not all about test scores at all. I mean, just seeing that as a teacher, it's kind of like when the parents are like, well, what about this and what about that? And I'm like, what about the fact that they like kind of wanted to punch the wall today? I mean, that's also, I'm glad that you're worried about these things, very important. But if we're not addressing the socio-emotional aspect of kids, I don't understand why that's not as important as the other two. So that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, no, knowledge is more than just a grade on a paper, and I think a lot is lost without the development of music, without the development of arts, without the development of just pure socialization sometimes too. I think that's very much lost in the fact that we stick to teaching strictly to a test. And I think a lot can be gained by these interactions, by teaching people how to let their emotional outlet, so to speak, and find it and harness it and be able to become just a better person in general. Yes.
Well-rounded, like just I really like the fact that I was fortunate enough to move to that football town when I was in middle school and high school. That the football town, that aspect of it where arts wasn't important, was a huge downside for me. But I also wasn't the majority of the race at that school. It was half white, half black, with other cultures in there as well. But it was primarily white and black students, and I think that experience. I mean, Baltimore was diverse too, but Philadelphia was even more diverse in that I was able to become a more well-rounded human because I wasn't seeing just myself represented everywhere. It was a mix of a whole bunch of different people, and I think that's really important to just experience and live through it. It builds empathy, it builds understanding, it breaks down walls. It's a huge thing. So yeah, just learning about everyone. Very important. Very important.
Oh, of course. Well, I guess we're gonna kind of bring it closer to an end here, but so overall, I guess, what do you want to be remembered for? What's gonna be your stamp left on this world?
Oh, stamp on the world.
Yeah.
Well, now we have to talk about like multiple dimensions and realities and lifetimes. But currently, this one right now, I, I mean, I would love to have character development, and build my art up in the illustration sense. I think in that I would really like my sci-fi book to. I just living with characters in your head for so long is wonderful, but it would be also great for those characters to like leave your head and go visit other people sometimes. So I think the mark would be having my characters out on page, but I would also love to incorporate music and film in there and adapt it at some point in time. Will that happen? No idea, but it's a good goal to have. I mean, just shoot as high and as big as you can and just see what happens from there. So yeah, I would love for, um in the same way that, like the characters, the cartoons that I first started freehanding when I was little, like Looney Tunes or Garfield, like the way that those characters shifted and shaped my view. I would love to have characters out there that, people can relate to, and just someone who can hang out with other people and not just me. That would be great. I would love to have characters out there in the world one day. So I guess that's my goal, I think.
I love that goal. That's actually a really great goal. So, what do you have to hype? Do you have any projects that you want to advertise? Anything that you want to share? Anything that you want to promote? Or is it just all forthcoming?
Right now, again, um, so my socials at Autumn Snow Artwork. There's no W at the end of snow because my parents were very creative artists themselves. So it's Autumn SNO artwork. So that's my social media, and the link in my bio there will take you to. I guess the most pressing matter is the ABC book. I don't have all the animals yet. I don't have all the pets. I still need the letter A. I need to know what animal is going to set the tone for this book. That would be helpful. So I need some letters. I need some pets that are helping people through COVID and through this year, just in general. So working on the ABC book is a big project right now. And then for an upcoming Horrorgasm show is their Winter Wasteland group show. And right now I have, it's on my wall and it's my Christmas tree. I have a 6-panel painting inspired by Anna and the Apocalypse. And there's like lights involved and these amazing little tokens that I sewed out of felt and I hand painted and I stuffed with stuff and it's all stuck together. It's 3D art is also something that's very interesting to me because I feel like you should be able to touch things when you go to like Wonder Spaces is brilliant because you can get to go in there and manipulate things and be a part of an art installation. I think that's very important and fun. So that show is coming up soon, I believe on the 21st maybe of December. So yeah, my Anna and the Apocalypse piece will be up for sale. And then the book, I think those are the main two things for the moment until you guys throw something else out there and I will gladly contribute to that too. So whatever is up in the works, those are my two things. And then whatever's going on with you guys. So
Fantastic. Well, we got other stuff coming up. I promise you that much. So, um, thank you, Autumn. You've been brilliant the whole way through. This has been a lot of fun. So, I guess anybody else, if you would like to be part of the Creators Assemble Limelight or just looking forward to having a helping hand from a creative world, you can visit us at creatorsassemble.org. There you can check out our galleries. You can see the Limelight Gallery that Autumn is part of, and you can also see our upcoming events. We look forward to visiting with all of you soon. So again, Autumn, thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
you're awesome. Thank you guys for all that you do. I appreciate it. I am honored.